Kenny here with Gardening Simplified. It's November 15th and we're out here in the greenhouse and we're going to do a single seed challenge update. Now most of these citrus here have all been grown from seeds started this year. But as far as it goes, they haven't done extremely well because they weren't potted up. They stayed in their smaller pots too long. And I'll give you an example of that is this here. Now, you zoom out a little bit, and I'm going to say this is about 14 inches tall, maybe 15. This is a grapefruit that was planted January 17th, the same time when my single seed challenge was planted. So let's look at the single seed challenge. On the way to the single seed challenge, we'll look at another. Now this here was planted roughly 2 weeks after the single seed challenge, and you can see this is just about 6 inches tall. And I just potted this up yesterday. It needed potted up before. The way that I judged this whenever I started potting up most of mine, and I just got busy doing other things, but each time I saw that the roots came to the bottom of the pot, I potted it up. And I didn't go real big. This is a 2 gallon. I went from a 1 gallon to a 2 gallon. When I originally started these, I had them in little round 2.5 inch pots, 2.5 inch pots, or square ones like that. And I went to a 1 gallon. Now you don't want to just go, say, from the 1 gallon to a big pot that you're going to leave it in forever. They do better as they progress, moving them up, and then that gives you a chance to amend the soil too as you go, each time fertilizing it and everything. And you'll see the difference when we go look at this single seed challenge. Now this is the single seed challenge, and this right now I'm going to say I don't know, it's 36, maybe a little taller. We're going to measure it here in a minute because it's time I'm going to move this to a bigger pot, and we'll go through that. So let me get this thing up into the workshop. All right, I made it into the workshop here. Now, this is now 34 inches tall. And right now it's in a pot. It's about 12 inches deep, and it's I believe it's 13 inches wide. Yes. And we're going into a pot that is 15 inches deep and is 17 inches wide. So you can kind of get an idea that we're not expanding the pot too much. Now, one thing you want to be aware of too, if you're raising citrus, most citrus like this has thorns. These are sharp and they will get you. Now, what I like to do, and I haven't done this in a while, is take these thorns off on the bottom where I might be grabbing a hold of it to kind of, in my process of replanting it. And that way I don't, they don't get me, but I'm not too much concerned with it. Now I do have this metal rod here. It was supporting this limb right here. If you remember in earlier ones, it was laying over. I just pulled it up and letting it grow up more vertical, and I'll release that here maybe next year. I don't see any reason to release it right now. But being that fruit trees are evergreen and they can't tolerate real cold temperatures. Now if they get down pretty cold or pretty close to freezing or freezing just a little below, they'll lose all their leaves. Of course, they will come back, but if you're going to keep them healthy, you want to kind of keep them from freezing. And another thing you want to remember, these aren't like regular trees either, to where in June or July is your last fertilizing. You need to fertilize these regular. They're heavy feeders, and if they're in pots like this one, then it needs quite a bit of food. Now, what I'm going to be using now, this is a Flower and Bloom that was from Walmart. I picked this up towards the end of the season because they didn't have any more citrus fertilizer, which I kind of like better. But I'll give this a good dose when I put it in here. I'm going to put a couple cups of this scattered throughout the soil, you know, some up on top. That way it's going to have the nutrition that it needs. But let me see if I can't get this mixed up and put in. Now my potting mix that I've been using for all my trees, of course I pre-moisten it before I put it in, but this is a 1-1-1 ratio. So you got a third compost, a third perlite, and a third peat moss, and that should give good water retention and give good water drainage, because you don't want these to get to the point to where they'll get root rot. Now this tree will go into the ground next year. I'll have to decide exactly where I'm going to put it, and then we'll protect it in a way with it in the ground. But it'll do so much better in the soil than in a pot. But as long as it's in a pot, we need to make sure that we give it plenty to eat. Okay, let me get to work filling this up. One part compost, 1 part vermiculite, and this is coarse vermiculite, and 1 part peat moss. Now, before some of you out there that's really concerned with peat moss isn't a sustainable product, this comes out of Canada. The source is sustainable. They'll never be able to harvest all of it out because it's a big enough area that by the time they get back around to where they started, it's produced to where it's going to be well, sustainable. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put I'm going to mix this up first, and then I'm going to put it in as individual tubfuls, and I'm going to measure my fertilizer by that. Now, with organic fertilizer, it's not like chemical fertilizer. It takes a little bit to get started, and it kind of stays in there for a while, so it's going to be like a slow release fertilizer. But there are parts in it, like in the nitrogen, you have some nitrates that'll be released right off, and then you'll have some that are released later on, so it continues to thrive. And normally we try to fertilize citrus trees quarterly, so about every 3 months, because like I say, they're heavy feeders. If you take care of them right, that's the way you're going to do it. Now, I've kind of got this mixed up. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get me a tub of this. I'm going to put a couple of scoops of this fertilizer in there, and I'm going to put a scoop in the bottom of here, because this didn't get any whenever I was mixing it up, but we do want it fertilized throughout. So we'll mix this just a little bit more, make sure we get our fertilizer mixed in, and then we'll add some water. And you don't want it dripping water out, but you want to pre-moisten it some. That way it's not going to rob all your moisture from your roots. And you can come back and water it once you move it. It's going to be quite a bit heavier in that big tub, so it's going to need definitely need some help moving it, but you don't want to put too much water that it's going to create a problem. Now what I'm going to do next, when you're potting these up, and we went through this in earlier video, but sometimes folks don't go back to earlier videos. We're going to fill this up until our pot sets in here right. Now, when you use compost and such, it's going to deteriorate over time. In fact, in some of my big containers, I'll lose 4, 5, even 6 inches in a year. So you ever want to say leave some space at the top, depending on what your mixture is. I'm going to say don't leave too much space at the top. Then put a little bit more in here. Like I say, I want it up kind of close, and then if this root ball does break away a little bit, which is, it will be kind of good because it's going to need to work its way out. It's probably starting to get a little bit bound up. Now I've got the thorns off the bottom of this, so I'm going to try to separate this out and put it in this pot. And the way I'm doing this is now it is falling apart, which is not going to be a bad thing, except for the fact it's filling my pot too much for doing. Now you can see we've got a good root system on here. I'm going to go ahead and take some of this out, because what I want to do is plant the truss roots right up against the top. And in order to do that, we got to get it just about the right height. And we're pretty close right there. Besides the mess we've made, and put that in there. The thing is, you never want your tree to run out of nutrients, because not only does it stunt the growth, it's a possibility if it runs low enough, it's going to stress the plant. And if it gets stressed, then for sure it's going to get stunted even more, because whatever hormones it releases there really creates a problem. Now you want to firm this down around these roots. You don't want to end up with big old air pockets, because then what you're going to do is end up with a plant that's not going to be happy. Now this is probably going to settle in, and what I normally do, of course, we're set right back where we're at. This was where the top was prior. Now once this settles in, what I'll do is I just normally take compost, because it's a wood chip compost. It feeds good. It's still got some left, so it kind of acts like a feed and a mulch on top of it. So as this drops down some, I'll put some compost on this to keep it going. Now, for those of you that don't understand what the single seed challenge is, let's go over that. Scott Head with Black Gumbo gardening channel he started this a few years back, and it was each year we do a single seed challenge. The challenge is it's not the competition between someone else, it's a competition for yourself to watch the growth cycle of a plant. Now this is a little bit leaning over. I think I'll pack it and straighten it up just a bit. But anyway, you document this, and if you have a YouTube channel, which you do if you're watching this on YouTube, You document it from the time you plant this or select the seed and plant it, and follow this seed throughout its life. Now, I decided this year I want to do a grapefruit. Last year I did a tomato. But preferably something that you're not planting a lot of, which it doesn't matter if you are, but take that one and treat it differently. And as you can see, compared to those other ones, I have definitely taken better care of this one and watched its life cycle and know exactly what's making this one do better than the others. But anyway, as you watch its cycle, now this is going to be a long ongoing thing, because normally you'll watch it to from the seed to grow to harvest, and then to its eventual demise at the end of the year. Now, some people might take their plants in, so they keep it going for longer. Now, this one will, I'll be documenting it further down. But anyway, in the comments, as you'll see in this one, there's a hashtag. It's a hashtag Single Seed Challenge 2020. And each year, you know, it's a different year for the Single Seed Challenge. But when you do this and you pay better attention to it, and I say talk to your plants, because they like your voice whether you believe it or not. But take and watch this and see how it grows, and enjoy watching it grow. And then over the years, you'll have greater understanding for your plants and the life cycle of a plant. But anyway, I hope you like this video. If you want to see more, well, of course, hit the subscribe button, and give it a thumbs up. You know, share this; it helps my channel. And I also want to say at the end here, you'll have a link to all the videos on my Single Seed Challenge for this one here. You can go back and you can watch it from the start, how it's done and everything else. The year is getting closer to the end, but my plant hopefully is not. Now, I could lose it in the winter, you know, not keep it protected properly or something like that. And we've already had one freeze, but like you saw, I keep it in my greenhouse, and I have been using some row cover to give it some added protection. But anyway, I want to say, give it a shot for next year. Start planning to get your seed and take part in this with the rest of us. And I'm going to tell you, enjoy your garden.